Hello, friends, and welcome to our next session in motivation. Hopefully, you are doing well and you are enjoying the lessons. So, today we are here to discuss motivation 1.2. We are last in the last video we discussed about what is motivation, the process of motivation, and various theories of motivation. Now we are coming on to the other theories, like we are discussing content theories, need based theories of motivation. The third in our category is ERG theory. The theory given by Clayton Alderfer, that is ERG theory, is existent relatedness and growth theory. This is also a need based theory, but it has a different categorization of needs. That means, as compared to the Maslow's 5 need hierarchy theory, it gives 3 need sequence theory, not a hierarchy theory. Like we come on to existence need, related needs, and growth needs. As the name suggests, you can actually derive the meaning from the name itself. Existence need means survival needs, safety needs. Related needs are related to what? These are related to social behavior, related to groupings, related to social affiliations. So this is particularly social need. Growth need is about the growth of individual, improvement. You can actually include in this esteem needs or self-actualization needs, knowledge needs, its challenging job, a more autonomy, etc. These kind of needs may be grouped under growth needs. So we see here that in this diagram we see that existent needs are the first to be fulfilled, then we go on to related needs, and then growth needs. So three important things are here in this ERG theory given by Clayton Alderfer. First of all, there are 3 needs. We have seen existence needs, relatedness need, and growth need. Secondly, one more important concept is given by McClellan. Sorry, given by Clayton Alderfer is this, that he also talks about progression of needs and then regression of needs. He says that when one need is satisfied, then we progress to the other need, and when this is satisfied, we progress to the other forward need. But reverse also happens. That means if one of my need is not satisfied, then I move on to previous need. That means it leads to frustration, regression also. So he talks about an important concept which is not talked in the earlier studies, that is regression and progression. Thirdly, he says that as we move on to higher needs, then there is more abstraction. That means we can say that the existent need is more clear, and as we move forward, then the needs get more abstract. So this is the concept given by Clayton Alderfer in his ERG theory, that states 3 needs of individual: existence need, relatedness need, and growth needs. Now, the next one is McClellan theory of needs. McClellan theory of needs, or simply the PAR theory of needs, it has 3 needs. PAR theory says that need for power, P stands for power, A stands for affiliation, and other A stands for achievement. So simply, this in this content needs, we only categorize, or we actually uh, classify the needs. We name needs differently. Although all these needs are improvement over Maslow's need hierarchy theory only, whether you call it a 5 need approach or 8 need approach as improved by Maslow in the later on. We have seen that what are the 5 needs and other 3 more needs given by Maslow. So all these for 3 theories that we'll be doing other than Maslow's theories, they are just the improvement over the Maslow's theory, or we can say that Maslow provides the base for all other 3 theories, and these are just the needs. They have just given different names for the needs, or they have grouped them differently. That's it. So in McClelland, he has actually grouped the needs in 3 categories. That is need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation. Again, the name only tells us what the need is for. See, need for achievement is a drive to excel, achieve in relation to set of standards, and a strive to succeed. So simply, very simple. Need for power is to control others, dominate others, to get desired things done. Need for affiliation is friendship, good relationship, social behavior, interrelationship, groupings, etc. So we can see that there are 3 kind of needs: P for power, A for achievement, and affiliation. What you should remember in this McClellan theory of needs is that here the need for achievement is very important. That means he says that a manager with a need of achievement higher than any other need will be more productive to an organization. He says that an OB manager should identify workers particular or generate achievement drive, and suitable assignments should be given which ensure need satisfaction. So that those people who are driven by the achievement need will be more productive, will be more useful to the organization. Okay, so this was the McClellan's theory of needs. We are done with the content theory. We have till now done 4 type of content theories. So now we move on to the behavioral theories. We'll be doing process theory in the next slides. First of all, let's see the behavioral theories. So first comes the McGregor's theory why. We have discussed about this theory in our previous videos also. Let me explain you. What McGregor says that actually the whole conviction or the whole concept perception of an employer towards his employee can be grouped into two. Employer may have 2 type of perception of their employees, theory X and theory Y. As per employer, a theory X employee would be an employee who is indolent, who is gullible, who wants to be led, who wants to be supervised, who do not want to be creative, who do not want to be responsible, who do not want to be initiative. So that is the assumption of an employer towards his employee under theory X. Theory Y, he says that in theory Y, an employer sees his employee as a person who is willing to work, who is creative, who likes taking responsibility, who likes taking initiative, who likes autonomy, and who works for the achievement of goals, self-control, self-direction, self-discipline, etc. So according to McGregor, he says that employees are of theory Y only. We should not treat employees as theory X. He actually supports theory Y assumptions of employees. Okay, let's see. This McGregor theory is both a theory of motivation or organization theory. Now, popularized Maslow's idea of plural and diverse motivation at work. We know Maslow has given us 5 needs, like he has given us survival, physiological needs, safety needs, then comes the social needs, then esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. So he said that there are plural needs, many needs, and these needs are dynamic. They change with time, and there is a hierarchy. These are sequential, these are diverse. So he has popularized this thing that employees have different needs. Predominant focus on human resource. This is a human resource centric approach. You cannot treat it as a human relations approach. The difference between human relation and human resource is human relation particularly deals with social needs. It says that people are just social animal. They want to be in groups. They want to be affiliated. They want to be recognized. They want to be loved. So that is human relations approach, which was given by the Hawthorne experiment as conducted by Elton Mayo. Now, human resource approach particularly deals about the human resource and individual, his individual preferences, his priorities, his assumptions, his perceptions, his convictions. So this human resource approach tells us about what a human being is, how a human being is, how he thinks and how he does his work. So McGregor deals with human resource approach. He is associated with theory X and theory Y. He gave theory Y. Actually, he gave this term theory X and theory Y. He explained what is theory X and theory Y. And he believed in theory Y. Now, neoclassical positive set of assumption for human resource at workplace. Obviously, when we will be doing the organizational theories, we'll do in detail about classical theories, neoclassical theories, situational theories or contingency theories. And then we'll come to know that this theory Y of McGregor is under the neoclassical approach. Let me tell you one thing, that this neoclassical approach is an approach of treating human beings as individuals. This approach is treating human beings as complex person rather than only rational economic men. This neoclassical approach is against the philosophy that an individual have only economic needs. It says that they have plural needs. They have plural set of needs and priorities and choices, etc. So human relation approach is different from the human resource approach is different from the human relation approach, which is given by the Elton Mayo. He termed the unrealistic classic assumptions as theory X. Yes, theory X particularly, he says that classical approaches given by Taylor, Fayol, Weber, these are unrealistic classical assumptions which thinks an employee as theory X employee. They say that employee needs to be supervised. They actually advocate standardization. They advocate more and more autonomy, more and more authorization. They actually talks about authority and responsibility, etc, etc. So they talk about more of the structural changes. They talk about more of the standardization and less of the mutual adjustment, etc. More of the control, more of economic incentives, etc. So McGregor says that theory, this particular classical theories, they take theory X assumptions. Let us now see what are theory X assumptions. Average human being is indolent, he is gullible, he prefers to be led, he is self-centered, he resists changes, he favors strict supervision and control. Okay, fine. Now, theory Y assumption. Theory Y assumes, it takes a very positive perspective. It takes a very positive look over the employee's ambitions, aspirations, etc. It says that average human being like to work. He is ingenuitive. He is creative. He seeks responsibility and can give commitment to organizational goals. He likes self-direction, self-control, and self-discipline. Okay. He also explained here that with every assumption, he explained that how an organization can achieve it. Like, for example, if he is saying that a human being likes to work, then he explained how can an organization achieve to ensure that he likes his work. Actually, as we have also done Chris Agree's maturity theory, I hope that you remember. Let me tell you, in Chris Agree's maturity immaturity continuum, we studied about two personality types. That means maturity and immaturity. It actually talks about a continuum of maturity and immaturity, and it says that an employee moves from immaturity stage to maturity stage. And in maturity personality type, there are certain 7 kind of traits that a person possesses, and same in the case of immaturity. He also says that the onus of shifting an employee from immaturity side to maturity side lies in organization. It is the onus of the organization to have such a conducive environment, creative learning environment, so that an employee develops. In the same way, he also actually tells us or explains us how an organization seek to achieve a theory Y employee. How he can ensure that his employee has all these personality traits that we are assuming in theory Y. Okay. So you may have one question that if you are assuming that an employee has this, then why do we need to do things? Actually, an employee actually have this, but you have to have conditions in order to enforce these traits. That means he likes to work, but if he is regularly given monotonous routine in uninteresting work, then he will again turn into idolent. So you have to ensure that he is given such opportunities, such conditions, so that he develop these kind of traits only. Okay. So theory X assumptions about the people wrong. He says that theory X assumptions are wrong. Organization features were wrong. That means organization itself is wrong, so that it leads to such kind of employees. Maybe standardization, centralization, or focus on economic incentive like differential piece wage plan as given by Taylor, etc. Wrong treatment of people. That means treatment is being is not considered, or we are ignoring the human element. We are ignoring the behavioral aspect of human element. So it leads to decrease or decline in the organizational effectiveness. Now theory Y. Theory Y has positive assumptions. So organizational features are good, like decentralization, management by objective, which involves participative decision making and participative performance appraisal. It treats employees humanly, and then therefore it increases the organizational effectiveness. So conclusion, it is both the theory of motivation or organization. As theory of motivation, how people can be motivated is by giving them positive treatment, is by improving the organizational conditions. So this will improve organizational effectiveness. How theory of organization, it is human resource centric approach. Okay, so HR is not a cog in machine, but an important resource. He is not just an rational economic man. He is a complex man. He is a human being, a social animal. Now here you should have right assumptions about people, give correct treatment, improve job content. Job content, we have learned one term about job content. I Hope you remember about the job rotation, about the job enrichment, particularly job enrichment that we talked about, the vertical loading of job. So job content you can associate with job enrichment. Create reciprocal linkages. With this you can associate inducement contribution theory, given where we learned that organization and individual, they have interdependence and they share an kind of quid pro quo, where organization strives to provide inducement, broad based inducement in sufficient quantity and quality to the employees, and employees also give their voluntary contribution to the employer. So quality of work life is also an important motivating factor. Okay, we have learned about the theory X of in the behavioral set of theories. Sorry, theory Y of Douglas McGregor. Theory Y of Douglas McGregor in the behavioral theories. Now we are moving to process theories. In the last lecture, we learned about the difference between the content theories and the process theories. Content theories tells us what motivates, and whereas process theories tell us how it motivates, or how the motivation happens. And this is very interesting. So let's do the process theories. According to it, everything can motivate. It is not just an unfulfilled or unsatisfied need. Everything can motivate a person, and process of it is explained in these theories. So let's talk about first theory, that is Victor Vroom's valence expectancy theory. This is an entirely different theory than earlier. He told unfulfilled those theories told that unfulfilled needs motivate. But this theory, on the other hand, this theory given by Victor Vroom gave us the process of motivation and a mathematical formula. Let's talk about this mathematical formula. He said that motivation is equal to valence multiplied by expectancy multiplied by instrumentality. Then what are these words? So let's see what are these words. See, this is Vroom's valence instrumentality expectancy theory. This is the way anything happens anywhere. Like, first of all, you have to make efforts. Those efforts lead to performance, and those performance give us some output. For example, now you are working hard, you are studying. Your study hours, you're concentrating on your studies, your focus on your studies, writing practices, you're writing tests, taking prelim mock test, etc. These are your efforts. What is the performance? Performance is that you are writing well in the exam. That means whatever you are learning today, whatever you are studying today will lead to your performance in the exam. That means you are able to produce that in the exam. It is normally said, na, some people have this kind of thinking that whatever they learn, how much they learn, they would not be able to produce answers in the exam. They have such kind of mentality. Or some people even enforce this, that in IAS, whatever you learn or whatever you do, you won't be able to produce anything in the exam, because the exam is very unpredictable and you don't know about the questions, from where it comes and what comes. So in that case is you may not actually put on that much of effort, or you may quit that particular thing. So the effort is the work that you do in order to have performance, and performance is when you do the particular required act is performance. Then next, outcome in your IAS wala exam will be when you get the result. That means you studied well. That means you studied well, you wrote great exam, you studied well, you wrote great answers, you produced everything that you learned in the learned before the exam, and everything, your performance was good, was satisfactory. Then the outcome, were you selected is the outcome. Okay, your selection is particularly here the outcome. So let's connect these things. So if they understand the meaning of the terms expectancy, instrumentality and valence. What is expectancy? Expectancy is that belief that if I try hard, I can do better. That means it is a belief that if I study today, that means if I put on 7 to 8 hours of study in a day, then I will be able to produce good answers in the exam. I will be able to answer correctly. I will be able to appear in a better way in the exam, better than other contestants in the exam, etc. So this is expectancy, that if I study, I'll be able to perform. If I study, I'll be able to answer. So this is a relationship. So expectancy is actually a belief that if I try hard, then I can do better. Then instrumentality. What is instrumentality? Instrumentality is that if I do better, then I get a better reward. For example, in the organization, if you prepare a particular report, so you suppose you have to you have to prepare a particular report. So yeah, their expectancy is this: कि if I work hard today, if I surf a lot, if I research a lot, and if I put on so much effort in this report, then I'll be able to produce a good report. Then instrumentality will be, if I am able to produce a good report, I will be able to get the promotion or any other reward that I am expecting from the employer, maybe a salary hike or anything. So the instrumentality is this: my performance will lead to outcome. That means if I do better, I get a better reward. Then valence. What is valence? Valence is the value that a person attached to it. For example, in an organization, an employee thinks that if I perform this task, or if I complete this deadline or something, then I will be able to get a salary hike of say 5%. Now valence is the value that he attaches to those 5%. Is that 5% very important to him or not? So if that 5% is very very important to him, then he will be very very dedicated to his efforts. If this 5% is only important to him, then his efforts will be little less. But if that 5% is not important to him, then he will not make any effort. So valence is actually value of the outcome to the person's vis-a-vis indifference or aversion, whether he what value he attaches to that particular task. On the roads of Rajendra Nagar also, we see so many candidates, so many people who aspire for being an UPS the civil services officers, who are here to become IAS officer. Particularly, most of the, I think around 80% of people are here for the IAS thing, and few are actually dedicated to particular maybe IPS or IRS. Then those people, how many of them they attach much valence to this particular outcome? And the valence or the value they attach to this aim or this outcome will actually determine their effort. So this is so interesting to know that you, first of all, you have to, whenever you want to be motivated, it's also about it's also about self motivation as well as motivating others. So when I talk about self motivation, then you have to first of all improve your expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. You have to believe in yourself that if you work hard, then you will be able to write good answers, so you will be able to perform in exam. And if you write good answers in the exam, you will surely get marks and you will get selected. And you have to attach a lot of value to your selection, committed to your goal, so that the actual thing happens. So this was the Vroom's valence, instrumentality, and expectancy model. I hope you understood. Let's see other things. See, valence is the perceived worth of reward offered, or the value of the outcome that we attach to it. Expectancy is it is valence, instrumentality, and expectancy model. That is VIE model. So valence here stands for how much value you attach to your outcome. Instrumentality is your performance is leading to outcome, and expectancy is your efforts are leading to performance. Okay, so valence is perceived worth of reward offered. Expectancy is perceived effort performance probability. Instrumentality is perceived performance reward probability. For example, the 20% salary hike offered to Mr. X. So if his valence is low, that means he does not attach much value to this 20% hike, then his motivation will be low, irrespective of the fact that there is high expectancy and high instrumentality. That means he believes that if he work hard, he will be able to complete the deadline, and if he is able to complete the deadline, he'll be able to get hike. Instead of these two in high degrees, because of the low valence, motivation will be low. And this happens in all the cases, that if any of these three things are low, then motivation will be low, because motivation is simply the product of these three things, or addition of these three things. So motivation is product of valence, expectancy, and instrumentality. So Evaluation is more, it is a more realistic because it gives process of how motivates. It highlights the need to create environment of objectivity. That means you have to be more clear in your approach, which we have also learned. We will learn actually in the coming slides that. Goal setting is very important. In this case, you have to make your goals clear, precise, and specific, so that people there is more of objectivity and certainty among them, and these expectancy and instrumentality are clear. If these expectancy and instrumentality is higher, then automatically it will lead to more higher motivation if balance is also set higher. That means you have perceived the right needs of the person, and you are providing as incentive the fulfillment of those needs only. Then motivation will automatically be higher. It also is a practical basis for goal congruency. Goal congruency, you now know that what is goal congruency. That means harmonizing the goals of organization as well as individual. In this case, we have done vector model. I hope you remember the vector model, where we have two vectors of organizational goal and individual goals, and we strive to achieve organizational effectiveness. Hersey and Blanchard model. Now, criticism. This is an incomplete theory because we'll see a complete version ahead. So it may be a situation that all the three are high, then the motivation is low, because he may have high motivation, he may have high expectancy and high instrumentality, but still he may have low motivation because there are two things. So we'll do those two things in the next coming model. Let me just give you briefing. Maybe he does not possess those abilities, those physical or mental abilities to achieve that particular thing. Then also motivation will be lower. Secondly, maybe he does not, his input output ratio, his estimate of equity is low, so then also motivation will be low. And we will be talking about these two things in the next theory. So let's come on to next theory, that is Porter and Lawler's theory. Porter's and Lawler's theory, what it says. Porter's and Lawler's model, it says that motivation is a function of balance, expectancy and equity, and performance is a function of motivation, personal ability and mental ability, and satisfaction is a function of PR, that means perceived results, and actual results. That means if perceived results are equal to actual results, then satisfaction will be there, and if perceived results are more than the actual results, then also dissatisfaction, and the other way also. We'll be doing this in detail. So this you learn that he moves a step further, not only talking about motivation, he also talks about performance and satisfaction. So let's see the whole model. It's very interesting. See how it is. First of all, what is equity? Equity is a cost benefit analysis, particularly in a very crude term. Being a chartered accountant, we can say that the equity is cost benefit analysis or input output ratio. Particularly, we are comparing the inputs that we have put and the output we are getting with the inputs that the other person has put and output he is getting. So for example, if I'm giving 8 hours in an organization and I'm getting certain 2 lakh per month, and my friend with the same qualification, he is also giving 8 hours in the organization and he is getting 3 lakh maybe per month, then my input output ratio, or I can say my output upon input ratio is less than his output upon input ratio. So if this is less, then I will have a dissatisfaction. I'll be dissatisfied because I think that with the same effort he is getting more than me. Although what I'm getting is sufficient for me, or it is as per the industry norms, but if he is getting more than me, then there will be a kind of dissatisfaction among me in me. So equity is effort reward parity, input output ratio. We compare our output input ratio, the input output ratio with the other person, and we see if there is any mismatch, then it leads to dissatisfaction, guilt, or feelings of that like. So now what this model says, that valence, value we attach to our goal or outcome, or expectancy is what? If we have put in efforts, then it will lead to performance. Actually, we are combining expectancy and instrumentality here in one. That is expectancy. That means if we are putting up efforts, we'll be getting rewards. That means if I'm putting up inputs, then I'll be getting output. है ना. If I'm putting up inputs, I'll be getting output, and this is the output, the value that I attach to the output, and this input output ratio of mine I compare with other person, and that will be equity. Clear? So this is my input, this is my output, and this comparison of output input with other person is my equity. So the combination of three will lead to motivation. That means motivation is a function of balance, expectancy, and equity. Fine, very nice. Now physical ability, it is also impacted by, this motivation will also impacted by physical ability and mental ability, because this motivation along with physical and mental ability will lead to performance. Fine, this I think you can easily comprehend this, that motivation comprehended by or complemented by physical and mental ability will lead to performance, and this performance will lead to actual rewards. Obviously whenever you perform something, you will get some actual rewards, but when you get this actual reward, you have something there at the back of your back of your mind, that is promised rewards. That means the rewards that you expected, the output that you expected, so those are the promised rewards. So you will, now after getting the actual rewards also, you will compare your actual rewards with your promised rewards. If your actual rewards are not in sync with your promised or perceived or expected rewards, then it will not lead to satisfaction. If it does not lead to satisfaction, it will have impact in the future in his expectancy. That means in future he will consider, he will keep on thinking that no, efforts will not lead to rewards. He will think that I put on efforts, I gave that much of effort, and that did not give me those rewards which I expected. So it will not lead to expectancy, and if low expectancy, then low motivation, then low performance, then again low rewards, and then again coming back to this turns into a vicious circle. So the actual rewards must actually, they must be in sync, or they must be equal to the promised rewards in quality and in quantity. That is why it leads to satisfaction. I think this is very clear, this is very practical, this is very much applicable in our own lives. For example, if I think that if I work hard, I will get selected. If this is my expectancy, effort reward probability. If I work very hard, I study around 10 hours a day, or maybe a very take a realistic measure of 8 hours a day, then I will be able to get selected for IAS. That is my expectancy. Valence is being an IAS officer. If I'm selected, then what value I attach to it is valence. So this input output ratio I see with other people, that if they are studying for lesser hours and getting selected, this is actually used in organizational terms, because input equity we cannot do here, or I can also do here also. For example, if my friend is putting 8 hours of hard work and he's earning this much, then I'll compare. If I'm here putting 8 hours of hard work and I'll be getting this, so I'll compare my output with his output. So if there is a greater side on my mind, then I'll be motivated. Yeah, I'm putting also 8 hours a day and I'll be getting something not less than him, then there will be equity kind of equation. Then I'll move on, I'll be motivated to work. Then I should have physical ability, I should have the ability to sit for long hours, to study for long hours, as I have that mental ability to comprehend things, to analyze things, to remember things, and then I lead to performance of task. That means I'm myself writing the examination and the result coming. So if suppose I was aiming for IAS and I get IRS post, then my promised reward was IAS and I got IRS, so my satisfaction level will be little low. If it is low, this satisfaction level is low, and then for expectancy, what I will say to other people, that how much efforts you put in, the reward is not in your hand. At least I put in 8 hours a day, then still I wasn't selected for IAS. So how much efforts you put in, then reward is actually not certain. So this is in a practical life. In the same way, you can do, like if you are selected for IAS officer and your rewards, if I'm selected for IAS officer, then my promised was also I am being an IAS officer. So this is in sync with each other, these are equal, then my satisfaction level will be very high. Now I advise to the people that yes, if you work hard, you will definitely get selected to IAS. So these are the theory. This is a theory which is actually an improvement over the Vroom's vectors theory, Vroom's expectancy model. And It explains a cause and impact relationship, what leads to motivation, then what is the impact of motivation that we are learning here. I hope this is very clear, and this is very important and very interesting. You can use it in your real life as well as in your answers, as giving advice to the OP managers, as what to do in particular situations, how to motivate individuals better whenever they bring on any new change in the organization, how to proceed with the change. First of all, you have to explain the value of change in the organization to all the employees, so that they understand clearly that how this change is going to impact them and help them, so that they attach a valence to it. Then you have to put on expectancy, that means if this much effort is put on, then you will get this reward that were promised in valence, the output that they are expecting in, and the value they are attaching to this output. So that output will be achievable with this kind of input, more specificity, more objectivity, and more clarity. Then equity, that means all of them performing the same task will get same results. That means there is no incongruency, there is no inequity. This will lead to motivation. Then you have to ensure that they have the physical and mental ability, and this physical and mental ability can be ensured by providing them training, seminars, quality task forces, quality circles, etc., so as to enhance their physical and mental ability, and then leading to performance, and then coming the actual rewards, which you should ensure that they are in line with the promised or the perceived rewards, so that it satisfies them, and future a more change or the more suitable change can be implemented. So this way it also helps in change management. Okay, let's see. Added one more dimension of J. Stacy Adams equity theory. We will do this in detail. Equity theory is simply that output input ratio wali, and cost benefit analysis, etc. Now explain cause and effect of impact of motivation. So yes, we have done this. Individual compare input output ratio, that is reward outcome, or reward effort, or effort outcome, whatever ratio of himself with others. Explain relationship between motivation and performance. Yes, we have seen that motivation is a function of what? It is a function of expectation, valence, and equity. Performance is a function of motivation, physical ability, and mental ability. And satisfaction is a function of perceived rewards and actual rewards. Okay, so here we have seen this motivation pre-task state of mind, performance post-task state of mind. If perceived rewards and actual rewards gap is big and negative, then distrust and lack of fairness. Evaluation fills the gap of Bloom's theory, and another dimension added, very practical cause-effect relation given. Okay. So now we come on to the contemporary theories. Contemporary theories are called contemporary theories not because they have come up recently, but because they represent the present state of mind of managers. Okay, this is a very nice theory, like cognitive evaluation theory by E.L. Deci. Cognitive evaluation theory by E.L. Deci. What it says is that extrinsic rewards. If extrinsic rewards replaces the intrinsic reward, then the pleasure associated with the work decreases, and hence motivation will decrease. It is very exceptional kind of theory, that it says that, for example, in a non-profit organization or in a charitable organization, a person is giving some services, and in lieu of those services he is getting some intrinsic rewards. That means he must be getting some satisfactions, maybe some knowledge that he strives for, or maybe other self-actualization and needs are getting fulfilled, esteem or self-actualization needs are getting fulfilled. But if you start giving him monetary benefits for those services, that means extrinsic rewards are being introduced in that case, then these extrinsic rewards, if it replaces the intrinsic reward that he is getting, then his pleasure that is associated with the work will reduce, and hence his motivation to do the work will also reduce. So what is extrinsic motivation, which comes from outside environment? Outside environment, how come? Outside maybe in the tangible form or maybe intangible form. Tangible form means economic rewards. In tangible forms, we talk about what is extrinsic motivation in tangible form. It is in the form of economic rewards, like salary hike, maybe money, paisa, clothing, shelter, food, nutrition, and also other needs. Recognition is intangible. Tangible means those things which you can touch and see. Okay, so tangible is, you understood. Intangible is which cannot be seen, maybe like recognition, maybe a respect, admiration, etc. So he says one more thing, that in extrinsic reward also we can't say all the extrinsic reward will decrease motivation. He says that in extrinsic rewards there are two categories, tangible and intangible, and the tangible rewards along with intrinsic reward will lead to decrease in motivation, whereas intangible reward along with intrinsic reward will increase motivation. For example, if a person is giving free services and he is told to be paid for those services, then his particular instinct to do the work will diminish, will actually get defeated, will get weakened. So he may get demotivated to do the work. But if he's giving the free services and he's recognized among the members give him more respect, and recognition, then in that case this will increase motivation. So it is an exceptional theory applicable in only certain sectors, like Mr. X going to NGO giving free services, then if he's paid for this, then it will decrease. If he's he's giving more respect and admiration, then it will increase. Okay, so I hope you understood. Intrinsic is motivation that is driven by an interest, that means our own interest, maybe a drive for knowledge, a drive for self-actualization, a drive for social service, that kind of thing. It exists within the individual. Okay. So what is the conclusion? Conclusion says that conclusion says that organizations should actually make appropriate measures as in an extrinsic and intrinsic reward. There should be a proper combination of the two. There should be a balance between the two, and also employees should find jobs for reason rather than extrinsic rewards. This is very true, that those people who actually join the organization just for the economic benefits or just for tangible rewards, those individuals soon get disillusioned by their job profile, by their job content, and they may get disinterested in the work and may hence turn unproductive. So an employee, while finding a job, he should also see the job content as along with job context. Okay, I hope you can actually relate job content and job context here. Job content and context, these words we learned where? These words we learned in a theory that says that an employee may very happy with his job may still quit the organization. An employee who is not happy with the job may still stay in the organization. Right? I hope you remember that second content theory of motivation, where we learned about the motivators and dissatisfiers. Two-factor theory, Herzberg two-factor theory. Okay, now the second one is goal setting theory by Edwin Locke. This is a very important theory. Actually, this is a very, very important theory. It also helps you in setting your goals, maybe goals for your study, your targets, your daily targets, your weekly targets. It will also help you in setting those. Okay. What this study says? This study says that intention to work is major source of motivation. A person who wants to work is a major source of motivation. Management by objective is extension of these theories. We'll be doing this. Now come on to the main concept of these theories. It says that a vague means unclear, where there is ambiguity. Vague, easy, that means is an easily achievable target. Without feedback, that means which is not reviewed, with no suggestions for improvement, with no recognition of efforts, with no appreciation for good work, that with no feedback, those kind of goals are the goals that decreases performance, in which the performance are not so good, that decreases motivation, in which each persons do not perform so well. That means in what goals? Those which are vague, which are unclear, which are very easy to achieve, and in which there is no feedback. Okay. Now then, if these will not lead to good performance, then what will lead to good performance? Okay, he's telling us what will lead to good performance. He says that goal specificity, that means a specific goal, a very clear goal, a quantifiable goal. That means you are clear about the objectives or the goals that you have to achieve. You are clear about the outcome. Then difficult, it should be challenging. If it is challenging, it is actually addresses the intuitive tinge of that particular person. That means he will like to work to achieve the challenge, and to prove himself. So it should be challenging, it should not be very easy, it should be a little challenging thing for the person. With feedback, that means it is properly being reviewed, it is properly being appraised, and accordingly it should lead to outcome. Means goal acceptance and performance feedback should be there. So if these three things are there, that means you mention your goals clearly, specify it correctly, quantify your goal, and you set a little difficult target but achievable one, not unrealistic. We are not talking about unrealistic targets, we are talking about realistic, practical but difficult or challenging goal. And then with feedback this will improve your performance overall. Okay, so what he says here is that for goal setting, these three things should be kept in mind. If these three things are kept in mind, it will increase the performance overall. And how MBO is an extension of this? MBO will do in detail in organizational theory. MBO is a very big topic. Particularly now I can tell you there are two important things in MBO. MBO, management by objective. That means here the goal setting is very important. You are actually working only as per the objective. You are very focused. So two things are important, like it involves joint in goal setting, joint decision making, and it also include participative performance appraisal. That means you are setting goals together, asking for the views of your followers, members, employees, subordinates, etc. So there is a joint decision making, participative decision making, and secondly you also appraising their performance participatively, giving them proper feedback. And this management and by objectives it's a very big topic. We'll be covering it later. So I think this is okay. This you are fine with Edwin Locke now, goal setting theory. Now comes to self-efficacy theory. This is also very interesting one. These are very quite psychological things that you can relate to your life and your experiences, your thinking as well. So what is self-efficacy theory? Self-efficacy theory is a self-belief theory. That means how much you believe that you will be able to do something. It is individual belief that he is capable of doing something. So it is self-efficacy theory given by Albert Bandura. Do you remember this name, Bandura? We did social cognitive theory by Bandura. You remember that? We did that after reinforcement theory. We did this Bandura theory of social cognition, which says that I also discussed it in previous video of motivation. Again I tell you, it says that not only the reinforcement or negative positive that a person gets from the organization, but also his social surroundings, the social behavior around him also affects his performance or his personality. That means there is a tendency in an individual to imitate things that happen around him. Okay, that is social Bandura. This is very good example that I'm going to give here. I actually relate this Bandura term with monkey or bandar, and I say that bandar always imitates. So Bandura actually talks about imitation. So if it helps me in remembering that Bandura deals with imitation only theory. One more theory here we are doing is self-efficacy, that is self-belief. Okay. Now see, boss picks X and set tough goals for him. This is goal setting theory. Okay, we have seen that three things to be kept in mind: goal, specificity, challenging goal, and then proper feedback, MBO, and all things. Now individual feel energized. Yes, he has. Yeah, I have to do something. I have to I have to do these things. Achieve these things. So he's clear about this. So he feel energized. But does he believe in himself that yes, he can do this? This is what boss has told him. That means this is what the boss has told him, that you have to do this. But does he believe in himself that I can do this? Do I have the ability? Do I have the capability to do this? This is what is self-efficacy theory. So after setting up of goals by the boss, he will set goals for himself, and then it will lead to performance. Okay. Now 4 ways of self-efficacy. What are the 4 ways? An active mastery. That means repetitive task mastery. If I have done this work earlier, then I'll be more confident. Like I have got one diagram in this case. See, performance accomplishment. If I have done a past experience, I have done that particular work earlier, then I'll be more motivated. I will be more energized. I will have a more conviction in me that I will be able to complete that task. Vicarious experience. That means I see others doing those things. If I see today that Tina Dabi can achieve a first rank in the very first attempt, then there is a little more conviction in me that other people or me myself can achieve, can get the first rank in the very first attempt. Anybody can get it. That means if a handicapped person can have a first rank in UPSC exams, then other handicapped people are also motivated, or they also develop a self belief that they can also do this. This is vicarious experience of modeling by others. Social persuasion, like you have been persuaded by your parents, your friends, your teachers, your colleagues, that you can do this thing, or there is coaching and evaluative feedback. Physiological, our social status, your own physical and mental ability, your emotional status, your feelings, your thoughts will also have an impact on your self-efficacy. So an active mastery, repetitive task mastery, vicarious modeling, more confidence by seeing others to successfully perform, verbal persuasion, someone convince you or motivate you, arousal, external stimulation, shouting by the audience. Here this is one more other thing, like for example, if Sachin Tendulkar is there on the field to bat, and there is huge shouting by the audience there, there is huge excitement seen in the audience, then that will motivate him for a while. It will motivate him to perform well, or it will actually give him a belief that yes, I can do it. When he hears his name, him actually like so loud and clear by thousands of people actually crying out his name, then it will actually give him a little bit of self confidence that this I can do this. So this is arousal by external stimulus, a change in the emotion feelings. Pygmalion effect and Galicia effect, that success lies in our own thoughts. This is a bit of motivational stuff for our own self, that success lies in our thoughts. We can be what we want to be. Our life is what we make it. Okay. So this is self-efficacy assessments, and this will finally lead to behavior or performance. Okay. Now this is the last theory for the day, that is J. Stacy Adams equity theory. I have talked about it earlier. I told you that this is an output input theory. But you must also keep one thing in mind. One output input theory can be that we actually compare our outputs with our input only. No, this is one way. No, but this equity theory, this deals with comparing our output input ratio with other person's output input ratio. That means I am comparing my cost benefit analysis with other person's cost benefit analysis. I am trying to ensure that I am getting what others are getting, and I am also trying to ensure that I am not at the loggerhead. So this is what this equity theory says, that output of A upon input of A must be equal to output of B upon input of B. This ratio must be equal. This ratio must be equal so that he is motivated. And this equity theory we uses where we uses it as an improvement in the Victor Vroom's model, and there we talks about that motivation is actually a product of valence, is a function of valence, expectancy, and equity. Remember, I hope you remember we did this thing in Porter and Lawler's model. Okay. So this is a perception. Obviously, this is a perception. This is what I'm perceiving. I'm seeing that I'm putting up 6 hours a day and I'm getting this output. Another person is putting 5 hours a day and he's getting that output. Or maybe in terms of any output, input can be in terms of anything, and output can also be in terms of anything, or intangible, tangible, extrinsic benefits, etc. So this is the perception. If this does not match, then if it is more, that means you are getting more, then you will have a guilt feeling that I do not deserve so much and still I am getting so much. As today normally people get actually exhilarated by this idea rather than feeling guilt, but it may lead to guilt. And if it is less, then obviously everybody will get frustrated and very angry on the idea that I'm getting less than the other. Okay, consequences: it will reduce the efforts, it will change perception about self, it will change perception about others. Okay, choose a different, that means you will compare yourself with another person. Now you will not treat that person comparable with you. For example, if you are studying 9 hours a day and another person is studying just 2 hours a day and getting the same benefits, you will stop comparing with himself. Arey, wo mere comparison ke layak nahi hai, let me compare with some other person. We'll compare a person with someone which we think is of our same intellectual or same academic sense, or same kind of comprehending abilities, etc. So, or you will leave the job finally. The ultimate choice will leave the job. So it all we have done here, the motivation theories we have done with content theories, behavioral theories, process theories, and contemporary theories of motivation. I hope you like the video, you understood the concept of motivation, and if you like the video, please tell to us in comment box below, and like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let us know what improvements can we bring in this series of organizational behavior for commerce and accountancy. And thank you for watching the video. Thank you. Have a good day.